like
And we have the map ready.
He's an extremely strong destroyer player. He's an extremely strong gunboat. He gets his rotation right nearly all the time, and that's very key. And this played a big role in this game. The first thing I did not understand from Rain, and this illustrates basically the problems they had in that early game. The Brisbane gearing smoke was properly placed, but we're looking at C there in this sort of area here. Now this smoke was set properly, but the Brisbane kited away from that smoke and basically went out of radar coverage on C. Now this is a bit weird because an explanation for this move could be that the Brisbane was afraid of a mass push on the 9-10 line, in which case you can't really afford to sit at the beginning of the smoke 3 kilometers closer to the opponent, because if you get rushed, radared by superior forces, you're never going to make it. But the thing is, Rain could see that WND smoke on that side was passive, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at how the smoke is directed, it is directed towards the border, not aggressively down towards Rain territory. So they could have maybe realized that nothing really super scary and aggressive was coming towards them. And we're going to see, look, this is the moment the Brisbane from Rain here pops the radar. And you can see that the green ring on the minimap doesn't quite reach the entirety of the cap. Had the Brisbane been 3 kilometers closer, he would have had the rail range on the cap. Ragnar would have taken the cap eventually, because Rain only had one radar in the area, but they would have saved at least a minute. And a minute is worth a lot of points, and in this kind of very tense game, this is what can make the difference between a victory and a loss. So you can't really afford to get this wrong. Des Moines sending it and like losing the trade and dying eventually on A was, I think, a pure like misplay. Maybe they did not expect the Des Moines and Harugumo push to come back on the one line. They thought they had the situation in control, and you see they overextend out of the island here. Direct counterplay by WND, pick up a free Des Moines kill, very well played by WND, and underestimating on Rain's side the possibility of this one-line counter push going, because Ohio's really low on HP, not really able to body block the one-line counter push from that Des Moines. So they picked up an early kill there, and I think they could have avoided throwing that Des Moines on A that early afterwards, because this Des Moines ended up dying. So some misplaying, honestly, on both sides. What we could even like call throwing and counter-throwing, although it's not that easy to say at this level, because every single mistake, even the slightest mistakes, get punished very quickly.
Look, this moment, the Des Moines loss for Rain,
yep.
I saw your face when you saw it.
Yeah.
I think I know what you were thinking, that this game might be over at this moment. But I'm impressed with Rain that they still managed to not lose their hopes, you know?
Yeah, well, like when you look at the scenario here, you have a Des Moines and a destroyer coming back for A with the Ohio trapped in the middle, very low HP. The situation looked very wrong for Rain, because C was never like reachable in a short amount of time, and B, you can see a very strong lockdown from WND. Des Moines and Moskva, double long duration radar on top of a Ragnar. That's 3 radars to keep B in check. Mm-hmm. Very hard for Rain to get back into the game when you look at things standing currently. And I want to emphasize a bit what happened with the Ohio from Rain, because this area here is not safe. You can see the Moskva sitting on that side of the island, on the outside of the ring. This is a very easy position to hold as a cruiser, and you can see that the Hydro gets the Ohio basically spotted all the time. When you enter that ring, and I'll get back to earlier in the game, so that we can have a clearer view of what's going on with all the ships there. When you enter that ring here, you want to sit on that side if you spawn from south, because if you sit on this side on the south, you have all angles open from here and here to shoot at you, right? So you want to be hugging the islands that are on top. But when you hug the north islands, you expose yourself to Hydro and radars coming from the cruisers which are sitting there, which means you're never really entirely safe from anyone. Also, the Donut Islands aren't high all along, right? Mm-hmm. You have gaps, you have holes in these islands, which means you can get farmed from this direction, you can get farmed from this direction over this island. And this is what happened to Malimo, and honestly, he's very fortunate not to have died there. So Rain got a bit
especially dangerous lucky if you're a big BB like an Ohio, right?
Yeah. So definitely Rain got lucky in that regard. But you have to give credit to Bison for hitting these torpedoes on the Vermont, because Once he hit the torpedoes of the Vermont, that was the only BB on WND's team left, dead, right? And if you remove the battleship and only cruisers are left and destroyers, and you still have 2 battleships to play with, that's a lot of HP you can throw at the enemy. You throw HP at the enemy, keep them busy, force them to farm the damage. And see that Malimo, after like his little donut operations, sailed into B, attracted focus fire. We're going to get to that very quickly. Attracted focus fire, allowed for the Ragnar rotation to happen on B and get the cap. Because while Daring and Gearing are busy farming the Ohio from a safe distance, the Ragnar can freely make its way towards C and get the cap. Also, Dustert's move with his Montana, getting a trade there with the Des Moines is very key because you dig the radar out, and once you're, like, as long as you're here with your Montana, I'm gonna actually get back to when it happens, that it's clearer for you guys. Like, actually, it's the wrong way. As long as they have the Montana here, basically sitting there, the Gearing in Brisbane have to farm that guy, right? If they stop farming the Montana is free to move up and heal the Des Moines. And while they're busy farming the Montana like this opens up the way for Brisbane and Gearing to counter push into C. So this is the perfect example of HP usage, being like HP being managed to have the enemy farm you to allow your team to gain the positions back. And after all that, after all the dust settled, we saw that Rain was able to get control of all 3 caps back and put WND in a position where they had to push back in, but they didn't really have the HP anymore. They didn't really have the meat to throw at Rain, like Rain threw at them with their double battleship to get back into positions. And at that point, they had to suicide ships in, and Rain did a great job at welcoming them with open arms and getting the right kills.
You know, that's very interesting what you're saying. Usually when I think of competitive tournaments, KotS, clan battles, it's mainly the destroyers that, at least me, a player that is not very into competitive things, that they decide the outcome of the game. And in the past, I would focus mostly on letting destroyers with a very small amount of health, you know, the enemy team would let them live and then they decide the outcome of the game. Here you see the impact of the battleship and letting battleships stay alive. They can, in the end, heal a lot of health, especially one like Ohio with this...
The quick heal, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Ohio is a great ship you want to use in this kind of situations because you get the fast reloading heal.
Yes.
WND probably bet on the fact that BBs are not as crucial on that map because you can have islands to sit on. They're easy to farm once they try to get into position. The donut is not really a safe place to hide as a battleship. And they thought that with more cruisers and destroyers, they could establish better control over the objectives. More mobile ships, more control given with the radars. It worked very well at the beginning, but they didn't really make it work once mid-game arrived, and Rain used their BB's HP pool wisely. They were a bit fortunate, right? You have to have a little bit of luck. That Des Moines maybe overplayed the situation by trying to come out to deal with the Montana by...
that was a very interesting moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, he probably gambled that he wouldn't take as much damage on the first salvo and that he could then farm the Montana to death with the help of Brisbane and Gearing. Probably was not necessary. But I think Robin had something to say about this game, maybe a remark.
This is exactly what you mentioned, Lulu, because one of the Des Moines from Rain on the A side unfortunately went down because of a mistake rushing the island too early or stuff like this. But on WND side, that Des Moines push on the E7 line, he was full HP, tucked in, and would have been able to radar Bravo and prevent the Ragnar from Rain to cap it back, with the help of Daring and Ragnar to contest it too. Why did they decide to send that Des Moines out and essentially went down within a few seconds?
Yeah,
just on the hope of removing a Montana who couldn't already had a lot of maneuvers in the first place.
Yeah, but maybe he was afraid that the Montana had enough HP to send it on him.
I see.
And he did not really want to gamble one front salvo from an overmatching BB. And then he decided to take matter on his own hands with a full HP cruiser, come out, don't be a sitting duck waiting for the punishment to arrive with the Monty and play it this way. The thing is, usually when you're a full HP cruiser and you're as in, even at close range, it's rare that you get death struck 100% HP to 0, right? He still ate a lot of damage. In the end, it was a trade. They could have worked around a way to make it not a trade, in my opinion. Had they remained a bit calmer and collected, this Montana wasn't going anywhere, right? Instead of going out and taking an as-in salvo, like stern-in salvo from the Monty, maybe just stay bow in, wait for the Monty to commit for the push, show the broadside, you can AP his bow maybe as he makes it past the island, and then the front salvo maybe one-shots you, maybe it doesn't, but it maybe was a safer and calmer
At least
option.
you're safe afterwards.
Yeah, to deal with the situation. Probably like he rushed the decision a bit,
I'm
I
not
guess.
an analyst, but I think that what might have cost WND the game. in my
Very
opinion.
potentially. You know, for these back and forth, tense, like all over the place games to happen, you need mistakes to be forced, right? We saw the type of games that Penta, for example, inflicts to their opponents. They get an early lead and they make so few mistakes and leave so few openings that you don't even have the opportunity to make it an all over the place game, right? You never manage to do it because they punish directly every sort of counter-offensive you try to build up. What happened with WND is they made mistakes which allowed Rain to set up counterplay. And it led to the situation where the ships get traded all over the place. They reach new angles very quickly, which you can't keep track of all the time. So you end up having to make rushed decisions that aren't always the best. It opens up the place for mistakes. And this Des Moines that moved out, this guy is an extremely strong player. He's like 0.01% of like in terms of strength in the player base, and he still makes this sort of play that we could call ridiculous looking from a neutral perspective. But these guys, they are forced to make the best decisions in very short periods of time because otherwise they may lose the game for their team, which is very stressful, very difficult to deal with. And but it's good for the viewers. It's good for our entertainment, and that such games happen is very enjoyable.
Exactly. Look, while we're still waiting for the players to assemble, I wanted to very quickly go over the drops and what might excite a lot of our viewers. We have our render ready. I'm sure what you'll do is you will divide the map at some point in 4 sectors. Look, and show us how Rain controls the map.
It comes down to geometry, right?
Of course.
Look at this. Okay, look at this. Now,
we
can clearly see what the idea of WND is. You have 3 destroyers and radar cruiser looking at B, right? Delny looks at B from this spot in reverse, very aggressive spot, which you don't always expect a ship to be, don't really expect the spot to be very used at the beginning. Ragnar, Daring, Des Moines, Vermont, all of them looking into B. They were expecting something to arrive here and pick the ship up. A bit like a Penta style, you know, expect something to arrive there, set up the right counter. Didn't quite work out because Rain left the middle open, which is something they, by the way, tend to do often. They instead send it on A with the intention to cap it. They could obviously cap it very easily because, well, WNG left nothing there to defend, nothing. At this point, you can see on the minimap that there is a clear opportunity for the red team to push up here, right? It's completely open. Usually, you don't always want to overextend into emptiness because you lose, you have ships like doing nothing, right? While they push up. So you may be tempted to reroute a bunch of the forces towards B to play sort of to play basically on 2 caps and left A open, hoping they won't counter push you. But the thing is, Rain, as we move forwards, climbed up the 2-3 line area and ended up pushing WND into a situation where, and we're going to move a bit, like they're just trading with the DD, gaining an HP advantage on the Delny because the Young is chasing the Delny with the radar, outspots him, allowing for the Ragnar to deal with the Delny at a distance, which is something the Ragnar is very strong at. And we end up in this scenario where, as you said, we're simply going to draw lines. We're going to cut the map like this and count how many quarters are controlled by each team. We have 3 quarters controlled by Rain, 1 quarter left for WND. Now, for now, this isn't too bad for WND because they still hold the cap, they have Daring, Ragnar in a position, but look at this Des Moines here. Very crucial to understand the situation this Des Moines is facing because the Delny and Vermont and WND as a team, they have given up the entire area here. Rain ships are free to spot, send torps, and the Bourgogne at some point even made it to this sort of area where he's able to shoot at the Des Moines over there. Now, by letting the top of the map and the top like west of the map completely open, they allowed Rain to dismantle WND's support north of B, which means in the end, B is open for pickup. And this is what Rain did. They sent Vermont and Moskva for free pretty much because WND, they do not have the ships anymore in place north of B to counter this. Now, this is what I was talking about. At this point on the map, and you can see it even before, B and A are going to be firmly in control of Rain as we move forward. Like, this is ineluctable, you can see it, right? So this counter push on C from Madara was unnecessary. They probably panicked on voice, saying they have a point lead and a point disadvantage. They need to push everywhere, but they should have realized that A and B were going to be for them, and that this push that killed Madara in the end was unnecessary. Pretty much. And it was, at this point, just like a pickup for Rain. Very well played strategically, exploiting the weakness that WND left in their strategy earlier.
Well, perfect. Thank you for the analysis. We actually have a guest that we will very briefly interview. I guess,
like Rain leader, strategist.
main leader strategist
Yeah.
for the winning team, Rain, Gang.
Gang Bahrain.
So let's do our part,
Let's hear 'em out.
connect the headsets.
Which is nice because I want to have a quick look at the render, because I want to give props to Cloud for the idea they brought. This is not an idea you see usually on that map. You don't see it very often, and I want to give them credit for going for it and executing it relatively well, to be honest. Focusing on A heavy with DD Wolfsbag coming down the 1-9, the aggressive Vincent Stalingrad crossfire coming from the channel on the 3-4 line area. It was a good idea, but well done, Cloud, not Cloud, OHBOY,
Oh boy.
for reacting properly, and I will illustrate that very quickly, as right when we have the render, which should hopefully happen in a few seconds.
Yes,
There we
yes,
go.
we see the render
There we
is
go.
ready. Should
It
appear
is here.
on your screens in
Very
a
soon.
second.
Okay,
So
I'll
let's
jump
have a
directly
look.
to. Yeah. So here we basically what both teams we see, but what both teams are up to, right? Green team Cloud, very little forces on C. They clearly want to win A fast and potentially cause casualties there. They managed to do that. They actually got that Brisbane kill rather early, because see how it happens. Like now the Brisbane currently is sitting in smoke on full HP. He is not aware. I mean, actually, he should have been aware, but maybe could not react fast enough because how fast things went on Cloud side. But he's basically doomed because he's being overrun on the side, on the 1-9, by 3 destroyers, which are going to hard spot him, right? Brisbane has a radar, but Brisbane plus gearing is not enough firepower, even with a radar, to stop double Khabarovsk Grozovoy pushing. So they're going to keep sending it into you, and they're going to perma-spot you. And we see that Cloud is bringing Stalingrad Vincent in this position here very specifically for the purpose of crossfiring this Brisbane. They end up in a situation where they basically cut this side of the map and make it unplayable for the red team, because you can't simply stand in front of double Khabarovsk. You're going to get farmed down, and if you want to turn this way to Kite, you're going to be facing Stalingrad and St. Vincent crossfire. They managed to get this Brisbane kin rather quickly, which was very well played. In the meantime, OHBOY realized that the C area was left completely empty and proceeded to take advantage of the space that was given. Very much the same way as Rain did against WND in the series that we saw previously, where if you left C open, we're going to take advantage of it. Let's see how they do it. They push the Sevastopol, and they know at this point that it's a kill, right? They know the Sevastopol is left alone in the corner. They know it's just a matter of time before the Salem pick the Sevastopol up. And they're going to move the Vincent and the Des Moines up. See? Vincent moves up, and we end up in a situation where this Vincent position completely bullies away the support that should be sitting north of B for Cloud. They hoped that the Stalingrad and Vincent sitting in the B area were going to be able to provide the support to hold B for long enough, which they did. They actually held B for quite a long time. But we saw that the daring torpedoes were deadly to the Vincent, and this position here is not usually one position you can hold very easily, even if you win this side of the map completely, which they did. OHBOY proceeded to basically settle into Cloud spawn, nullified the support north of B and to the side of B from Cloud, and ended up taking that cap by force by pushing Des Moines into it with the help of the Vincent, very much like we saw Rain do on Bravo on Shatter, pushing the Vermont, and the Moskva into B, because at some point when you gain so much ground in the enemy spawn and bully the support away, you're able to send chips just for free inside that B cap. And Khabarovsk, and Grozovoy is not enough to completely bully OHBOY away the same way that they can that OHBOY can do on Bravo on the other side. You see that when you have Vincent, Des Moines pushing, it's a lot of meat, so to say. It's not the same as when you're pushed by 2 or 3 destroyers, which means in the end, OHBOY had much more HP and much more strength to push into B, and Cloud were left without tools to do anything about it. Very well done by OHBOY. But still a good idea from Cloud. Sadly, the execution wasn't exactly amazing. They could have managed better coverage of C. You can push A heavily and still have a bit more holding forces left to make sure that the C to B cross in your own spawn isn't made so easy. That's the big part. When you're trying to push one side hard, you need to make sure that they cannot just get easily into your own spawn to deny your support on the central area.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for this analysis.
Penta, they played their game. They didn't do anything crazy good. Like, they didn't have to. And the positive for Rain is that we saw they tried to take the initiative, right? When you let Penta unfold their strat and play things the way they want, they gain the initiative and you can't react properly. So Rain tried to cause a problem to Penta and test them, see if they were ready to answer it the right way. Sadly, Penta were, sadly for Rain, but they tried something, which is good. This is the right approach. Double Marseille, obviously taking the safe way. You don't want your Marseilles to be spotted early on. Basically, you want to wait until your Marseilles are pushed in for them to be spotted. Because if they are spotted on the way to the border, it directly gives out the info about what's about to happen. If the only moment your Marseilles are spotted is when they are actually coming down to inflict the damage and inflict the pain at full speed, then you catch them off guard. So Rain, in that regard, they played properly, sent the Marseille around very safely to avoid spotting and then had them dive down. The crucial issue is that they lost the Ragnar too quickly. What you want when you're pushing with double cruisers is a spotter in front. You cannot push without any vision in front of you. Because if you have a spotter in front, you're going to be able to perma-spot the target you're after. You're going to be able to zone out destroyers that may come to perma-spot you or torp you, right? It's important to keep the destroyer alive. And in that regard, it is important to have a great timing. Because basically they knew what was going to happen. Penta always have their DD/Brisbane smoke here or Nevsky or whatever radar cruiser you may want to put there. So they knew about it. What you want is for the Brisbane to waste the radar, or not waste it, but use the radar on the Shima or the contest. And then once the radar is burnt and the smoke is over, you have an entire minute or minute or 45 seconds when the Brisbane doesn't have the radar anymore, and most importantly, it doesn't have the smoke. It's at this moment that the spotter comes into play to go down, perma-spot the Brisbane as he's forced to run away under double Marseille, overmatch firepower, and Montana. This was the plan, and then you kill the Brisbane. Sadly, Ragnar died. That's it. Ragnar dead, end of the game. Because I'm not sure what happened. I think, I need to actually, I think he was caught in hard spot from the Arugumo. He must have been caught in hard spot of the Arugumo, or maybe he triggered his radar, started shooting the Arugumo, completely disregarding the fact that the Brisbane was still there. I don't understand what the Ragnar did, because the Brisbane radar was down. You know, at that moment you have roughly a big minute 40, I would guess, of safe time before the radar comes back up. Just follow the Brisbane in his concealment range, like 11-ish kilometers, a bit less, and have him perma-spotted for your team. He went in aggressively too fast, wasted his life basically, and at this point, from there on, there is nothing that can perma-spot the Brisbane. So the whole purpose of this Marseille push is like non-existent anymore. They still could get this Vermont kill, but at the cost of 2 Marseilles and a Ragnar. So that's 3 ships for 1, obviously not enough. The push was dead in its tracks, and Penta were simply able to collapse back on A when all of this was over. They dealt with this 2v2 very well. They ended up having their Moskva alive because obviously Rain were forced to make something happen. So they sent the Montana in, trying to get 2 kills for 1 there, but it didn't happen. Penta played it very seriously on the sides where they were even. 2v2 on C, 2v2 on B. They didn't lose the trades.
Yes.
Didn't allow Rain for compensation on their A losses, which means in the end the ship disadvantage for Rain was too big, and Penta flawlessly won it. But the Ragnar death decided it completely.
Look, it's very interesting that you've pointed it out to this specific situation with Ragnar. I still have to give it to Rain because they did not surrender suddenly. They tried doing their best. They even sunk El Smackman.
Yeah, you know, pride kicks in. Pride
Yes,
kicks in.
yes, yes.
You don't wanna fall without a fight, but they knew basically it was over when the Ragnar died.
But you know, this is the Rain that we want to see. The Rain that comes with an idea that doesn't
Exactly.
give Penta that much room to take control
Yeah.
of the map. Let's hope that they come with this attitude to the next game.
Yeah. They need to be able to pull something off in
Yeah.
something such as this. They need to make it work.
Let's have a look at the next map, maybe. Well, let's have a look at the map and see what exactly happened.
Well, was it actually? No, it was actually a 4 versus 3. Yeah, 4 versus 3. Gearing gets the cap early on C. Well done on that. We can see that Rain quickly get B and C. Maybe something that was problematic for Rain early on is that Napoli getting caught and losing a lot of HP. He lost the trade against the Marseille big time, which forced the Daring to come back and help the Napoli. Had the Daring not came back, the Napoli would have probably been able to chase, the Marseille would have probably been able to chase the Napoli further away. So they had to move this Daring as a helper to the Napoli, which left Schlieffen really open on B. So not only did things go wrong on the 10 line, things also went wrong on A, and they probably didn't think that they would need the Daring to help the Napoli, which means that it removed one of the protectors of B as far as Rain are concerned. So in the end, Penta would have probably found a way to make their way into B, knowing that the Daring was mobilized to help the Napoli not die, basically. And yeah, as far as the Kremlin action was concerned, obviously it may seem as a bit weird what Dastert did, but Dastert in his Kremlin played the situation perfectly right. He played the situation perfectly right because as things stand currently, if I get back a bit here, he's on full health and the game is going very wrong. Rain have already lost the gearing on the 10 line and they're about to lose the Harukumo. We see at this very moment the Harukumo is on like 1 HP, ready to be killed. So at this point, the one way Rain is salvaging this game is by pulling some sort of insane maneuver somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And first in line to achieve such thing is the Kremlin. He pushes out, obviously doesn't go ram the Vincent. You don't want to go ram the Vincent when you're already at a kills disadvantage and a point disadvantage. No, not quite a point disadvantage, but very soon will be a point disadvantage because trading equally always favors the winning team.
Yes,
So he
but
sails-
then the drive-by with the Stalingrad,
Yeah.
what happened there?
The thing is, look, you can't ram the Stalingrad either. The thing is, Anleitung playing his Stalingrad knows that. He knows that Dastert cannot ram because his only chance is to drive by and get the devastating strike. Anleitung knows this and he knows how he should reverse and position himself to make sure Dastert in his Kremlin cannot bring the guns to bear, right? Dastert made the right play in the sense that he needed to get this clean death strike, make it out alive, for Rain to have even the slightest chance to stay in this game. And simply Anleitung countered this play properly and left no real possibility for Dastert to pull off this move. So well done to Dastert for trying this. This was absolutely the right move to do, and well done to Anley for reacting properly and not letting himself get death struck.
So you're saying it was Anlei's skill that he managed to reverse so close to the Kremlin, at the same time not ramming him?
Yeah, well, Anley would have been happy with the ram, I believe.
Right.
Anley would have been happy with the ram because even with a ramming flag, Kremlin on that HP cannot survive a Stalingrad ram. So Only was trying to get the ram, and he also was getting close enough so that the guns couldn't have the right depression to death strike him. So he played that the right way. But really props to Dastert for pulling this. It may seem to the viewers as Dastert failed 2 rams, sailed broadside to the Vincent like an idiot, and then like lost his ship for no trade. But it was actually the exact correct play he needed to do in this situation. It simply didn't work out because Penta reacted well.
Look, I'm asking because I imagine that a lot of people will have questions about this specific situation.
Yep.
So thank you for making that clear for us. Is there anything else that we want to have a look at this game?
Well, not really. Maybe we can get back a few minutes before this whole situation unfolded to stress what I was saying before. If we look at the situation right now, Rain aren't in a really bad spot. They have a firm control of the 10 line. They have 4 shapes to Penta's 3. Penta should not win this 10 line trade. One of the keys to winning C, I've explained it, is trying to dominate the 10 line area. Because if you dominate the 10 line area, should you spawn from south or north, you can gain easy angles on whatever is supporting the C cap from here or from here if you spawn north, and vice versa if you spawn south. That's the way you can then make C a bit easier to contest with a destroyer. Obviously, Rain wasn't going to allow Penta to do this, so C was pretty much a lockdown for Rain. B was a bit more complicated, as I said, because Daring was forced away to protect the Napoli, but there was still everything to be played for on that map before they lost the 2 destroyers on the 10 line. So Rain actually had a decent chance to win this game. They had a good opening, 160-point lead as we speak right now, and it's a bit disappointing that they didn't give themselves the chance to fight the long game, fight the control game, and defeat Penta. They defeated themselves, basically, which is disappointing, and they must be sad about it.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the next map.
As far as the rendering is concerned, we have the games. I mean, we have the render replay ready. Rain had a little idea here with the Bourgogne, right? You want to bring the support really quickly towards A to make sure your DDs can play aggressively on the objective, because they wanted to get this A control quick. 2 Frenches with the speed boost, very clear intentions there, which is nice. And the issue with that is on the long run, Gearing Worcester smoke combination will end up winning ground. You cannot counter that if you don't have your own smoked radar cruiser to counterfeit the enemy. So that's what we saw happen on that A area. They ended up gaining the control back, sailing into B after they had depleted Sheep of all of his HP on the Yue Yang. And at this point, there was no retake in A, and we witnessed a bit what cost WND dearly against the very same Rain we're seeing now. They suffered the same thing the same technique that they used themselves to beat WND with this overlapping from A, killing the Bourgogne that couldn't really run anymore. Simple.
Yeah.
Simple, but not extremely easy to pull off. I liked what Rain did on C with the Vincent. It is very interesting to bring a BB in this kind of position because you can put great pressure across the map on whatever is sitting between A and B, and you can deny enemies from playing the 10 line very efficiently, right? Because you have a very strong HP pool and very big gun sitting right in the middle. It was very interesting. He was able to reverse in and out, ended up getting the cap there. Had it only, this was a great C play, sadly counterfeited by the mistakes that Rain made on the other side of the map. But that C area taken individually was a big success for Rain overall. Which also implied good control over B. They didn't really manage to take B, but at least they kept Penta from capturing B themselves for pretty much the entire game. Sadly, you can't expect to win when one of the sides always loses so bad or loses ships for nothing, It's very complicated. So overall, a very deserved 3-0 win for Penta.
Well, you know, I was hoping the finally, since we saw no ban on Akleber and we saw Akleber on Rain's side, that it's gonna do something, change the outcome of the
Yeah.
game somehow.
But it's not easy. Maybe they didn't have something ready with Kleber Wolfpacks, and honestly, with Ragnars, with Woosters, it's not very easy to pull off the Kleber Wolfpacks. Warrior's Path is not exactly the best map for that either. So, yeah.
I see.